Hello everyone and welcome to the Wednesday Wire. This is a bonus episode to cover the remaining portions of our video topic last week for 4v4 team randomizer. So we covered the accumulators here on the left in the first video, and we also covered the primary circuit that drives the randomization. So today we're going to be looking at the memory component of this, which is what actually keeps track of all 8 players and their selected teams until the final point where they actually teleport to their base. So we'll show that part here as well. Before we get started on the memory part, I want to take a minute to highlight a couple changes to the kind of randomizer circuit here that you haven't seen just yet. So the primary change, you'll notice there's only one delay here now. There's not 2 like we had before. And what I've done here is I'm using dart traps with blue pressure plates to act as like shorter timers, just to make sure that our offsets and our delays are staggered enough that things happen in the right order when the circuit repeats itself. So rather than using a full 3-second delay and a full 1-second delay, we're actually just using a 3-second delay between each loop, and then these 2 dart traps are what controls the progression of the sequence. So the bottom one will pull the randomizer lever, and then the blue one here goes up and will pull the actual trigger to set the team value. The accumulators, like I said, work exactly the same, and these dart traps essentially just take the place of the 1 and 3-second timer that you saw in the previous video. So what we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and take a look at the memory module, and I'll let you know that this system, one of the, what I kind of call like deficiencies of the system right now is that it doesn't automatically reset itself. You can see there's these 5 small switches at the top. Basically, to reset this thing, those need to be pulled in order, and then you can pull the activation lever to start the process once again. So to quickly cover what this memory module does, I'll show kind of the initial starting position of everything here. So if you're trying to replicate this circuit on your own, you can pause the video here and take note of where everything is in the circuit, whether it's on or off, and what types of circuits they actually are. But if we take a look at the wiring here, this memory module is also kind of divided up into sections. It kind of runs top to bottom. So there are several different colored rails that run across the length of the width of the memory stick, and those are generally like activated for basically passing information from the level above it to the level below it. Now up here at the top, you can see there's this yellow and green overlapping wire that runs across the top and connects to these first faulty logic gates. When the yellow and green wire are pulled together, what that does is it simply shifts the bit. So you can see right now we have 1 bit lit up. You can think of each column as a bit, so this has 8 bits of memory. So when you pull the yellow and green wire that's connected here to these top circuits, it basically just pushes everything over to the right by 1, and we use that as a marker to keep track of which player we're selecting a team for. And basically nothing else. That's really all it's used for. It just simply keeps track of which player we're on. So right now if we pull the lever, we're going to be selecting the team for the first player. Simple enough. And if you pull that lever and fire all these gates, it just shifts everything over by 1. Now if we take a look back at the other pieces of the circuit here, you can see there's a green wire that runs all the way across as well that connects to these this bottom row of single faulty logic gates. And what that's used for is it essentially passes along a team switch. So you can see the row right below it is set with 1 off and 1 on. This is basically starting under the assumption that every player is going to be on the blue team. And what happens when the circuit is pulled, if it comes out of the green wire here, it's going to pull this trigger, and this marker, the one that's lit up here, will move along the path just like these ones up here when this trigger gets pulled. So this marker will move, and if the green one is the one that gets fired, if there's no team switch when the randomizer hits, it won't actually pull the trigger on these circuits, and it's going to leave these 2 gates right below as they are. But if it does come out of the green circuit, it's going to fire whichever marker is lit up currently. That's the player that we're changing the team of or setting the team of. If it does fire through that green wire, then it's going to come down here, fire out of the logic gate, and flip those two lamps there. And it's also going to keep track whenever a player gets switched to the red team by running this blue wire also down here to the bottom to this row of single logic gates, and these are used for nothing more than resetting the memory stick. They don't actually do anything in the logic itself. There's just a yellow wire that runs up here to one of these switches at the top. That's just one of the switches that you have to pull to reset the system. That's all it does. So whenever a player gets switched to the other team, it's going to light this gate up so that when you pull the lamp, it's going to fire back up and reset everything. Now these regular AND gates down here, when this green and yellow wire gets pulled on this circuit, green or yellow wire I should say, when the green or yellow wire gets pulled on this circuit, it's essentially just going to fire a signal out of either the green or the yellow, depending on which one of these two gates is lit up. And it's just going to pass it down to these AND gates. And because they're AND gates, they're going to immediately send a signal if they're turned on. There's no faulty circuit or no faulty lamp. And so they don't actually have to have a secondary trigger pull in order for it to pass the information along. They're automatically going to light up this bottom row here. And that bottom row, this circuit right here, is what will toggle the lights on and off. It happens, the lights turn on automatically when the circuit runs, but to reset it and turn the lights off, you have to pull this switch here. And so I'll show you what I mean by those lights here in just a second. Actually, let's just go ahead and run down there really quick before we run this. So these are the 8 teleporter pads, one for each player. And so the idea is 8 players would come in here and separate themselves out, one on each teleporter. The switch will be moved down closer to the player here on the left, and that player will just go ahead and throw the switch to start the randomizer circuit. Now this looks like a lot here, but it's really fairly straightforward to understand. These grids up here are wired with blue and red wire to turn on for either the red team or the blue team. And then it simply passes down into a 5-second delay so that once the circuits are lit up, a delay will fire the actual teleporter that links to either the red base over to the left or the blue base to the right. And it does that for all 8 players all at once. And so once the entire circuit runs and it lights up all these grids in the correct team color, then a delay gets fired, and after 5 seconds everybody teleports to their base and the game can begin. So I'll kind of show where these hook up here down at the bottom. It's fairly straightforward. It's just coming out of those last gates that we looked at in the memory circuit. So nothing too fancy there. I had to run these out in kind of in a weird way just because of the way that I built this particular building. So they're kind of not super well organized, but you kind of get the idea of this stick controls the rightmost player, the next one controls the one next to that, and so on. So without further ado, let's go ahead. Everything is reset. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and pull the trigger, and you can see it's going to start firing this circuit. And you'll see after the 3 seconds it fires those dart traps like you just saw, and it moves the marker over by 1. And so you can see it's flipping gates on and off as it goes, and it's keeping track with the accumulator over here. And so what we're going to do, we're not actually going to teleport on this one, but we're going to come down here and watch for the lights to light up once the entire circuit's done. It should be just a few seconds to get through the 8th player, and you'll see the team designations light up here if all goes well. And so there you go, 4 for the blue, 4 for the red, and 5 seconds later, these teleporters will be activated to the correct place. Now, because this circuit isn't entirely finished or like production ready for a base, however you want to say it, it doesn't automatically reset itself. They're just going to stay in that state. You can see this memory stick is all kinds of messed up here. But with the wiring diagrams that are provided, you can simply go through. That turns off the lights. That resets the bottom row. This one resets the middle row. This switch that I'm standing on here starts the marker on the first one, because by default, let me pull this, it's not that switch. One of the switches here will, the one that resets the memory stick, not that one, when it's completely full, I guess is when it does it. It needs to have that first marker set, and that's all this red wire does, is it just adds the bit in to set the marker for the first player. And then finally this one here will reset your accumulators as well as your randomizer circuit. So let's pull it one more time. We'll come down here and actually check out the teleporter mechanism. As you might have guessed, it's fairly straightforward. We'll just stand here on the first platform and go ahead and wait for it to finish. Should be any time now. And there you go. So 4 blue, 4 red, and we're about to be teleported to the blue base, which isn't all that spectacular. We just got a box over here that sends us over to the blue base. So it's really that easy. I know the randomizer circuit's kind of difficult, and the memory stick looks like a lot, but it's basically the same pattern repeated over and over again for each of the individual bits. So once you see the pattern, it's actually fairly quick to wire up. But yeah, that's basically it. So like I said, some of the challenges still remain with this are automatically activating this reset series after the entire circuit has completed its randomization of all 8 players. Having it automatically reset would be nice, and it shouldn't be too hard to set up. It's just something that I was already late on getting this video out because I ran into some problems getting this to work on its final stages. So I just didn't bother to put the resets in automatically, but this wire here that comes out of this final blue gate is the one that is signaled after after all 8 players are picked. So you can basically run a wire off of this and just set up a delay to fire each of these wires that we have set up here to reset the entire circuit and be ready for the next game, for the next team selection. So I'm going to be working on a write-up for the TeamEck forums for this. I'm going to be working on setting up a Reddit post as well for a guide to basically break down in static pictures or still images to show you guys all of the wire and all the different wires separated out, so it's a little bit easier for you to build, since this is by far one of the more complicated builds we've done on the Wednesday wire. So that pretty much covers it for today. If you guys have any questions, please leave it in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more Wednesday wires and more Terraria content. So thank you guys for watching. We'll see you next time. Good to have early. Oh, the ice. Oh, the dart traps. Oh no. That legitimately scared me. I jumped when those things fired. Oh my gosh. Am I going to die from this? I hope not.